Hey everyone, CKY here today looking to do another walkthrough. This time it's going to be on the platform TryHackMe and the challenge Anonymous. As per the TryHackMe rules, my walkthrough won't have the TryHackMe page on screen to give away any of the answers, but my walkthrough will cover all the material you need to answer every question on this challenge. The first 4 questions are actually answered with the enumeration, so let's look to get going. First and foremost, I like to ping the target just to make sure it's online. And as we can see there, everything's fine, so let's look to go on with our initial enumeration. We're going to do our first Nmap scan here. I'm just going to leave it on the default ports. I would suggest that you use a wider range of ports if you're going to be doing challenges on other boxes, but for this challenge and in aid of time, I'm just going to leave it on the default ports, which is fine. So we get our results here, and if we scroll back up here, we can see that we have port 21 FTP is open up here, and it is anonymous FTP. Port 22 for SSH, and we also have ports 139 and 445 open for SMB. Now whenever I see SMB open, I will immediately look to do some basic enumeration against this, and we can do this using the SMB client to determine if it will respond to a null session. So let's look to run SMB client with the -L switch, and this will let us see if it will respond to a null session. So SMB client -L, put in the IP address, blank password, carriage return, and as we can see, there is a PIX share visible on the target. Now what I would then look to do is use SMB client again to attempt to connect to this share and see if there's any information that we can gather. So let's use SMB client again. We don't use the -L this time, we put in the IP address, and we'll also put the name of the share, return, blank password, and as we can see, we've got a connection. Do dir, and we can see that there's 2 files listed in there. Now from what I've seen of this challenge, these 2 files were of no value, so we will disregard this and move on to our next point. Now as identified in our Nmap scan, there was FTP and anonymous FTP for that matter open on this, and whenever you see that in a challenge, you usually know there's going to be some crucial information in there. So let's look to FTP onto this box and see what we can find. So we'll do FTP, then the IP address, and then the port number. For the username, anonymous, blank password, and then we're in. If we do an ls, we can see that there's a directory called scripts there, so let's change into that directory. And if we then list the contents, we can see that there's 3 files listed here. Now if we look at the date timestamp of removed files.log, we can see the time there is very close to that of our own system, so this is of particular interest. The other thing I would note is that clean.sh has read, write and executable permissions for us, so this is also of interest. So what I then look to do is take these files down locally to look at. I'm going to turn the prompt off using prompt off, and then use the mget star command to download all the files locally. We'll then quit out of FTP and look to examine these files. So I'm going to ls the files again because in all honesty I can't remember their names. And the first file I'm going to cat out will be todo.txt. So if we cat this one out, we can see that it's saying I really need to disable anonymous login, it's really not safe. Well, that's especially true when you've got files that are read, write and executable in there. So let's look to cat out this script and see if we can determine what's going on. And basically what we can see is that we've got a bash script here that is set to delete files out of the temp directory and record any content into the removed files.log. So how can we look to exploit this? Well, this just appears to be a bash script running on a schedule, and what I'm going to look to do is insert some text in here that allows us to do a reverse shell via bash and see if it will execute on this schedule. So let's look to implement that. So let's open clean.sh in an editor. I'm going to use Nano. And what I'm going to look to do here is simply remove the contents of the script. We're then going to insert a payload. And for this payload, I'm going to reach out to Payloads All Things on GitHub and see what we can find for a reverse shell using bash. So let's open our browser. We'll go to Payloads All Things, GitHub. And as we can see, the first hit is SwizzKey repo, which is what we're looking for. And within this repository, there is loads of information. This is a fantastic resource on the internet, and I would thoroughly suggest that you look through it thoroughly and see what value you can take from it. There's things in here for reverse shells, payloads, everything. So I really encourage you to take a look. Now, what I'm looking for here is the resources, or the methodology and resources, and then we're looking for reverse shell cheat sheet. We can see that there's an entry here for bash, so if we click on bash TCP, and we can see that there is indeed a line in here for a bash TCP reverse shell. So I've copied that to the clipboard. I'm then going to paste the contents in here and then simply look to change the IP address and the port number to match that of our attack box. In my case, that's 10.8.105.34, and I'm going to use port 2222, but you feel free to use what you want. And then from there, we simply save our script. I'm going to clear the terminal here, and then what we need to look to do is upload this back onto the FTP site. So let's connect back to the FTP anonymously. We'll do FTP, the IP address of the victim, anonymous username, blank password, and I'm going to list the contents because I can't remember the name of the directory in all honesty. So we've got scripts there, so let's change into that directory. And then we're going to simply look to upload our amended shell. So we'll use put clean.sh, and that has successfully transferred our new script up there. And you can see from the difference in the file size that it has been successful. So let's quit out of FTP, and we're simply going to look to set up a reverse shell listener. So we'll use netcat nc-nlvp port 2222 for myself, whatever port you used, and let's wait to see if we can catch this reverse shell. So after a minute here, we can see that the reverse shell has indeed been caught. If we list the contents of the directory, we can see user.txt there. To see the contents, we simply do cat user.txt. I'm not going to show you the results of that because I'd like you to go through the process yourself. Now, if we do some basic manual enumeration for privesc sudo-l, we see that it says no TTY present. What this basically means is that the terminal doesn't have access to TTY to ask for a password. In order to get around this, and you may see this in other CTFs, we're going to do /usr/bin/script, do a -qc /bin/bash/dev/null. And this will then allow us to do a sudo-l. As you can see, we're now getting prompted for the password, so we know it's working. This isn't essential for this, but I think it's a handy tip to know for other CTF challenges. Now from here we could look to upload some scripts in order to find some avenues for privesc. However, I know what it is we're looking for, and I'm going to continue manually because it's a good practice to get into. So let's look to try and find some files which may have super user ID on them. So we'll use the find command. We're going to look for the user root, permissions -4000, and send the standard error output to dev null. And when we see the output here, one thing that immediately strikes out to me is usr/bin/env. This definitely shouldn't be there in my opinion. So from there, I'm then going to look to go to a resource called GTFO binge. So if we just open up our browser, GTFO binge, we'll click on the first result we get, navigate to the search bar and type env. We see there's an entry for suid. And from there we can see that there is in fact syntax in order to abuse the suid on env to obtain root privileges. So we'll copy that in. Now I only copy the latter half of the command because I need the full path to make this work. You can see my current user context. So let's use the full path. We'll then paste the remainder from the clipboard, return, and if I do a who am I now, you can see that my user context is root. We can then change into the root directory, sorry, not root.txt, but list the contents, and then we can see root.txt listed there. We can then cut that out to see the contents. Again, I'm not going to show you the contents of that because it would be good for you to go through this on your own. And that's the walkthrough complete. I do appreciate that this was quite short. I am trying to keep these concise in the aid of time for people. I would like to thank you for viewing. I am a bit young for subscribers, but if you have found any of this of benefit, I would appreciate it if you'd give me a like. Hopefully I'll catch you again in some of my other videos. Thank you for viewing.